You are listening to the Your Empty Nest Coach podcast with Coach Christine, episode number 109. A glimpse of some tips from inside our empty nest flock. I work with mothers of high school students and beyond who are in the trenches with sad and possibly overwhelming thoughts about what their life will look like when their baby heads to college and begins to leave the nest. My client's big question is, what will I do with my time? Is this you? I've been there and I get it. Empowering you to write the next jaw-dropping, amazing chapter in your life is my passion. I am energized by leading you in the process of exploration and am thrilled when you unlock the power that lies within you. This podcast is my gift to you. Hello, my empty nest friend and CEO of your life. So how has your week been? I hope that your thoughts about it are positive, even when the happenings in your life might not appear to be. Do you have any wins you would like to share with us? You know that I would love to hear them, and the other listeners of this podcast may find your win inspiring to them. So if you have a win or a question to share with me, I invite you to share via audio, either through SpeakPipe or my Google Voice number. You'll find the information to do this in the description of this episode. On Apple Podcasts, click Details. On Spotify, click See More. On Overcast, press the I for Information button. Get the idea? You also may send me an email at podcast@youremptynestcoach.com. Of course, I always have full show notes with links to anything I discuss in the episode and a full episode transcription on my website. Those reside at youremptynestcoach.com/P for podcast and 109 for this episode's number. I can't wait to hear from you. Thanks. Thank you. It's time to thank our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by my membership community, the GPS Support Flock, your flight to success in the empty nest. If you are ready to find the GPS of your life, sign up to receive an immediate and free download of my PDF, How to Find Yourself in the Empty Nest, our GPS Life Principles document. You will also have the opportunity to learn about our community. See the link in this episode's show notes or fly on over to my website, youremptynestcoach.com. Click the GPS Support Flock button. See you soon. An extra thank you to SoCal Chris, who left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts for this podcast. The review is titled, Christine is so much fun, and says, the cheer and joy just sparkles from Christine's message through to your earbuds. I enjoy the way she looks positively at some of the hardest experiences we have as our kids become adults. Wow, SoCal Chris, thanks for the 5-star rating and review. I'm honored you've chosen to listen to my podcast. What great writing, by the way. Now for you, my empty nest friend, in this episode, I'm sharing some bites of information that came out of the GPS Support Flock, so you could have a glimpse inside. My first share came from a group support call. I do not record the first 75% or so of these calls, and then at the tail end, if we have a session with bites of information worth sharing with everyone, then I record a quick wrap-up call. In one of these calls, a flock member asked a bit about her future self. My wrap-up points were, number 1, keep in mind future you. Figure out who she is. What point in time is she in? A week? 5 years? 10 years? I like to think of my future self as pretty far out because she puts this moment, this day, into perspective for me. Usually she says things like, you won't even remember this. And for that reason, I look further out on my timeline. The better you know your future self, when you figure her out, the better you really explore who she is, what she is doing. Then you can use her for everything else rather than coming to me. A flock like this is still fantastic for reminders and to keep you on track if you need accountability. For example, we can remind you to check in with your future self. In the end, though, your future self knows you better than I do. Remember, too, it isn't only about finding your future self, figuring out who they are, and trusting them. The power comes in when you actually access them. Then you can ask your future self, how did I handle this? You'll quickly get into the mode she's already in, and it's great fun. The other thing I shared is to make sure you are your biggest fan. Be careful that you aren't beating yourself up with your thoughts. When you do something awesome, celebrate it. Who cares if your neighbor thinks it's small? This is where knowing future you is helpful. Maybe you feel funny about patting yourself on the back. But if I consider future me, she says, thanks for doing that. You're doing a great job. You are more on the path to meet me and discover who I am. If you don't do that work, I don't get to be all I can be. So some action items and things to do and ask yourself. How well do you know future you? We have things our future selves will accomplish. Maybe a list. What you think she's accomplished, but who is the person doing the things on the list? There is a quick free training I have about finding future you available on my website. But the real navigation tool is the First Steps Toward Success program that you will find in the GPS support flock. Then give yourself the time needed to discover your future self. Who are you as you're doing that thing that you want to do? Live in it in detail using your imagination, and not just for minutes, but for days. Ask yourself, how does this feel different from my current life? How will that version of me be different from this current version of me? And then allow for modifications. If you spend time living in a version of future you and find that you don't like who that is, consider it a big win. Knowing what you don't want to do is incredibly important. And some action steps to take. 1, do the work. Ask me questions along the way. That's what this flock is for. 2, uncover. 3, then ask yourself, how did I get there? My listener in a follow-up chat that I had with a flock member about her future self, this is what I told her. You will discover your amazing self again. Try this on for size. I am worth the work I'm doing to discover my amazing self. She's hiding, but I will find her. My imperfection now as I move forward drives me closer to my future self, and each step, forwards, backwards, in slow motion, or running, has a lesson for me that will allow me to level up. I'm thankful for all of it. I'm worth all of this, and the journey is going to be fun. Of course, if you would like to dig into more detail with any of this, if you need accountability or want me to cheer you on, all of this is included in my GPS support flock, where I have a full workshop on this topic, your future self. I have worksheets and more. The questions I have for you in this episode are, and I know I've asked similar questions in earlier episodes, but these are really good questions to ask yourself periodically. 1, do you know your future self well? And 2, does your future self have anything to say to you? Christine, where are you? Have you checked out my Instagram reels yet? As of this recording, I'm having fun with them. I don't know if I'll keep up with them. They do take more time than I should allow, but my future self is giggling with me, so it's all good. If your child listened to a lot of the Wiggles when they were younger, I have one there that you may appreciate. Today, our quick tip is the wrap-up tip that Catherine, the 5-kilo traveler from New Zealand, shared with me way back before physical distancing began. So as you check in with your future self, who hopefully is able to travel freely, remember Catherine's great tips. It is time for a quick tip, advice, or thoughts from a listener.
I thought today I would do a recap of what I've mentioned so far about travelling light. So firstly, I asked you to consider the idea of travelling light and being open to it. Sometimes a new concept can be really out there and challenging, but I think as empty nesters, we are open to new ideas as our family world is changing. And we need to start looking at what we can do for ourselves. From there, I talked about taking what you need when you travel light. I don't want you travelling and feeling like you've left essential things at home. You have to be comfortable travelling. I mean, I take my hair straighteners so that I feel good about myself. So remember, this has to work for you. My next tip was to take less. My favourite saying is take what you need, but take less of it. And that really is a key concept when travelling light. Take what you need, but take less of it. That included packing a travel wardrobe that mixes and matches perfectly, swapping out heavy gear with lighter options, and reducing your toiletries and cosmetics by putting them in smaller containers. Then I talked about wearing your heavy or bulky gear on the plane. Although hopefully after listening to the previous episode, you would have swapped those heavy items with lighter things. Even so, you've got to wear something on the flight, so why not the gear that takes up the most room in your bag? And finally, I talked about merino and smart wool in my endeavour to single-handedly promote the New Zealand wool industry. My sheep farming brother would be very impressed with me. But seriously, merino, with all its great qualities, is the perfect fabric when travelling light. So be open to the idea of travelling light. Take what you need, but take less of it. Wear your heavier or bulkier gear on your flight, and consider merino or smart wool. So many ideas and so many more to follow. Happy light travels!
Do you have a quick tip to share with my listeners? Don't forget to share it with me. Information to do so is in this episode's show notes. And with that, I wish you a beautiful, conscious, effective, Olympian-esque day and week ahead for you, my empty nest friend. You should already know this, but you are amazing. But who is that person doing the things on the list? I don't like the way I worded that. You don't know who that is. Oh no. Still listening? Thanks for being you, for listening, and for checking your thoughts. You are not only improving your own life, but indirectly, you are an example to others. Keep being amazing, my empty nest friend.